Culture consciousness and movement building MILPA. Cultivating change makers, yeah, we're that smart.
Buenos días, buenas tardes to some of you. Welcome to the MILPA show where we disseminate news on culture, consciousness, and movement building. Again, just appreciate y'all tuning in, looking at listening to today's episode, right, where, want to highlight one of our colleagues, strong colleague, right, Airam Coronado here, the program leadership assistant at MILPA. And I'll let her talk about herself a little bit more, just wanted to present her like that, so, but today, just before we get into it, I just really want to, kind of a little check-in, like how we feeling today, it's a new solstice, equinox or solstice that's coming up, right? So I know that there's a lot of things in transition, the weather, time, all that stuff, so, ¿cómo estamos ahorita?
Yeah, so I'm feeling good. I'm very honored to be here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation and sharing a little bit about me with you all.
Yeah, I feel like they've seen you a lot, You've been in the Mujeres, you ran the Mother's Day episode too, where you hosted it y todo. So that was pretty cool, and I feel like now they actually get to learn about who Airam Coronado is, and not just you as a facilitator and a host. So it's gonna be pretty cool. But nonetheless, I'm doing really, really well. Keylin and Bernie, program and media assistant. Thank y'all so much for tuning in once again. But no, I'm doing good. You can definitely feel like it's gonna be springtime, So yeah, how are you doing? Pretty
yeah. I'm doing good. It's just kind of thinking about, it's February, right? And it's really hot, and it shouldn't be hot. So it's it really kind of threw me off a little bit, right? It just feels like spring. It feels like actually like summer right now, So, but other than that, it's I think I'm feeling good. I'm feeling I'm actually feeling good because we're having this conversation right here with you. Someone that I respect and admire. With the work ethic and all that stuff. And just building. So that's what I'm feeling right now, and that's what I think I'm bringing to this conversation. So. But we'll jump in it, and I guess this is a broad question, it's one of those universal questions, right, that we ask everybody and stuff, Pero in your own words, you can share as much as you want, as little as you want, right? Pero nos puedes decir a little bit about yourself, who is Airam Coronado?
Who am I? And I think this is a question that's often asked a lot, and I'm always like, well, what is it that you want to know? There's a whole lot, right, on my 26 years of life, but so my full name is Airam Coronado Gomez. I'm a mother, I am a student, a woman, I'm a brown woman. I work at MILPA. I was raised in the East Salinas. I'm formerly incarcerated, I'm system impacted, whatever you want to label it. So that's just a little bit about me. So I could throw out all the labels, like I'm a mom, I'm a student, I'm this and this and that. But yeah, that's who I am. And on my family side, I come from a big family. I'm the youngest one out of 9 siblings. We lost count along the way. So I'm the youngest one on both sides. And from my mom's side, our people are Coras and Huicholes, and from my dad's side, we're UMS, so I get to share a little bit of a little bit of 3 different tribal cultures. So I'm learning a lot, and I'm really looking forward to be able to pass on those teachings to my little ones, and one day be able to go and visit, where my grandma's from. My great grandma's still alive, so I have that. My great Tia, her sister's still alive, so I'm really hoping that, and she lives over there in Nayarit, in Tepic. So I'm really looking forward to visiting her this summer or maybe next year, one of those 2 things. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
No, that's legit, but tell us a little bit more about how it was growing up in the East Side of Salinas.
Yeah, so growing up in the East Side of Salinas for me was, East Salinas is so beautiful. You walk in the East Side of Salinas, and you're in the East Side of Salinas because you see our gente walk by. There's a big segregation the way that we see our town, where what side of town you're walking into. You walk to the south side of Salinas, you'll see everything so beautified. You see people in suits. And you walk to the East Salinas, you see our people, our hardworking people that are hands-on, willing to get their hands, dirty, willing to to be able to provide for their families. So I grew up in that community where, you know, you start hearing las sartenes, the neighbors' lights turning on at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, you start hearing like this gente like coming out, oh, buenos dias, you know, they're todos bien amables. You know, where there's little kids running around. You go to the park and you see like this multi-generational, like our gente is just right there. You see the señores with their bastones, you know, they don't know each other, they just go and sit together. You see las señoras over here, closer to the kids. And the señores are just like very vigilant, just looking around, you know, like, oh, you know, you could go up there. And one time I sat down with them and I was just having long conversations with all of them. You see the little kids playing in the park, you see the teenagers playing basketball, playing soccer. So you see that, you know, you see that in the east side of Salinas. You feel the warmth. You also get to see the struggles of our people. So growing up in the east side of Salinas was, in a way, I'm not going to call it magical, but it was, if you would tell me where would you live at again, I would say the east side of Salinas. Because that for me feels like home. Right now I live in the south side of Salinas, and you know, people are just to themselves, you know, like, and at least I know what's going on next door. You know, like where I live, it's just like everybody's just quiet. I mean, there's some gente que si te saludan, you know, they acknowledge you. But you see people just running in the middle of the night, like, who's chasing you? Are you okay? You know, and you see that too, like parts of the east side, you know, that now you see them jogging in the middle of the night. But growing up, I was like, I didn't really get to see that. For me, that wasn't normalized. Like, you have to go home. You see kids playing up to like 7 o'clock at night outside, lights are out, but you just hear this laughter. You smell barbecue every weekend. You know, that señora's cooking something next door. So you get to live. I got to live that culture. So for me, it was a good. I could say that escaping from a lot of things was going outside and being with my community. That was an escape to my reality that was going on behind closed doors. You know, I was raised by a single mother. I have a big family here too, but you know, being raised by her, she really taught me the strong matriarch that we have in our family. You know, she really taught me like, this is how you conduct yourself, and así no, tú no te vas a dejar. You know, like, and I remember being in elementary school, I was like, Mom, they're making fun of my name. And they're like, well, you go fight them back. And I was like, but you tell them this and this and that. And I was like, okay. So I did. I wouldn't go tell them what my mom told me to say.
Well, my mama told me.
Yeah. I was like, you know, because around that time, it was like, they would mix my name up with like Middle Eastern countries, you know, Airam, you know, what rhymes with Airam. And I would be like, I'm not that, and you know, I was get so pissed off, and I told Mom, they're telling me this, and I was expecting for my mom to back me up somehow, you know, and she's like, no, you're gonna go there by yourself, and you're gonna tell them this and this and that. So I did, and I'm gonna go do that, exactly what she told me to say. And let me tell you, they started making fun of my name. But I grew up with that. With me having to defend myself, with me having to speak up for myself, and I learned that at a very young age, where it's like, my mom always told me, like, you're not gonna have me all the time. I'm not gonna be the next to you all the time, and the best thing I can do is show you how to defend yourself and show you how to speak up for yourself. So I come from that strong matriarch of my family, where it's just like, they come from like, if a man can do it, we could do it. You know, it's like, all right. So I grew up like that. So growing up in the east side is, you know, east side of Salinas is we have so much stereotypes. They discriminate on our people so much, and it's, you know, due to community violence and other stuff, but it's beautiful living in the east side of Salinas. You know, it's actually colorful. You know, you might not see a lot of murals as much as East Salinas deserves to have so much, you know, more investments. But they rather invest in other parts of the city, which is really, you know, it's really hurtful, because that's where people live, you know. Not to say that they don't live all over Salinas, but that's where majority of you'll find your community there.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. You know, and it just one thing that kind of stood out to me. Y como dijiste, you know, you go and you start hearing the lights go, seeing the lights go on, the carros turn on, right? You know, just the cocina's active, you know, and it's like, it just really brings back the whole, like, our people always been trabajadores, you know. We all, you know, and in the reality of most of our folks trabajan el field, you know, or odd jobs or construction things that you have to be up. But it's we see that también, you know, in our lineage, you know, we were always up before that sun when it rose, you know, to honor it, you know, just because, you know, life was a blessing, was a new day, you know, it's a new experience, a new opportunity. And you know, yeah, it's también, you know, like that I guess that discrimination that our folks, our families suffer from just because we live humbly, you know. And like then I think it's not really by choice, you know, it's really like it's a systemic application, you know. It's like we're forced to like not be able to own homes or have the little finer things in life too, sue, you know, como dijiste, you know. And so gracias for sharing that. And just kind of I want to digress a little bit too, you know, because you were talking about, you know, your lineage, right? You know, Bichol, you know, Yoeme, you know, have you ever been down there?
No, I was planning on going last year, but COVID and everything hit. My mom did, so they still owned a brand, like a property there, that my great grandma's sister, the youngest one from my great grandma's side, she's a caretaker there. I haven't been there, but I definitely seen pictures of it, and I'm like, I'm taking that home with me. I want to come with me. You know, like they have an ojo de Dios there. I'm like, they have a buchola. I was like, oh, like I'm going because I'm going, you know. And of course, you see like pictures of like santos, you know, Catholicism, and it makes sense, you know, like the way that they had to, how should I call that? They had to adapt in order to survive, right? So yeah, and I, with my grandma, my grandma from my mom's side, you know, they're very Christianized, and I have to really pay attention to what she says, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's a teaching, you know. Like, okay, I hear you. So from her, it's like, oh, you know, the ego, he's a messenger to creator, and I'm just like, so tell me more. And then the conversation goes from here to like, oh, I'm over here, like, you know, go this way, and then something here, and then go this way. So like, I hear it in her, you know. And from her, one time I had this conversation. I'm like, so who are we? Where do our people come from? And it's like, oh, we're Guaras, and from your grandpa, there were Choles. And then she went all of them, Manzanillo, Colima Manzanillo, and then like she mentioned all the time, so we're all over Mexico, you know. But I get to hear a little bit from her, so I'm very blessed to have that strong matriarch of grandmothers in my lineage that are still alive. So
Yeah. No, to be honest, I was just thinking as you were, you know, sharing. I was just like, I wonder if she's been down there, right? Because even just hearing about how you express your neighborhood, right, on the region where you grew up, it's like it's not that far up from how people our folks live down there, you know.
Yeah.
So that's cool, you know. I appreciate that for sure. I appreciate that observation, you know, or that feeling, you know, that because you know, growing up in Watsonville, that's it. It felt like that. It feels like that, you know. So, anyways, so I guess. You know, how long have you been doing community work, you know?
So I got introduced to movement work at the age of, I believe, 19, about to be 20. Like 6 years ago, I got introduced to the movement work, and I got introduced to it by one of my mentors, Shai Kota. She was running, I've known Shai for a few years when I was a teenager, and she had Women's Colectivo de Mujeres, and she's like, hey, you should come check us out. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go. And I walk in, right, and there was like Medicina, Bernie, and women are sitting down in a círculo, and I was like, the copalero there was a little altar, and I was like, what did I get myself into? And I was like, but it felt good, you know, it felt right. And I was, at that moment, I was like, I'm gonna walk in here, you know, this feels right. Like, I wasn't used to, even though we do have a strong matriarch in my family, like the way I was raised wasn't around a lot of women. It was like, you know, we have more men in the family. But you'll be able to see, like, when you walk into grandma's house, this will, you know, the grandma has the last word, and grandma will check you out. You know, she'll be like, really? She observes. But anyways, I walk in there, I was like, what am I gonna do around a lot of mujeres? This is interesting. And you know, that the smell of the copal and cedar that were burning I enjoyed it. Like, this feels like something I've known. And during that time, I was really, you know, struggling, going through a lot of things, you know, trying to balance my life out and trying to figure things out, because at the age of 18, I was kicked out of foster home, so I had to navigate life after that. You know, my mom living in Arizona, and, you know, me having to navigate certain situations. So I walk in there and she's like, oh, so what you think? I was like, good. So I sit down with mujeres that have lost their loved ones to incarceration or to community violence, you know. So it was the way I seen Shai navigate that space was like, dude, this is heavy círculo. This is a lot, you know, like women that have lost their children, you know, that have lost their loved ones to these systems. So I seen the way she navigated that conversation, you know, and she's like, hey, you know, you should come by her office. So she would always invite me, and sometimes I would flake, and I was like, I don't know, I don't have a ride, which I did have a ride, you know, and I was like, I don't know, I'll go. So I did end up going. She's like, hey, do you want to intern with us? I was like, yeah, so what would I be doing? I was going to do Prop 47 work. It's like, you know, folks, am I qualified? I was like, yeah. So that's the first thing I did. I got the clipboard, and I went, and I was like, hey, you qualified for this. You know, I went to the board, like, write your name up. So I remember getting a lot of referrals, you know, and Prop 47 is helping people just reclassify their charges from felonies to misdemeanors. So, and then I started doing Prop 47 work, and then one of the MILPA men at that time, who no longer works here, he would go with us to the Methodist church. It was like, yes, can we go alone? And I was like, I can go alone. Like, I don't need you to come with me, you know. I can go alone. So I did. We went, and he was like, do you know what Prop 47 is? I was like, I read about it. I said, no, you need to read about it more. And I was like, okay. So he encouraged me to like read about it more and know like the roots of like that bill that was, the proposition that was passed in 2014 and why it was passed. So it clicked to me. I was like, damn, a lot of my folks, a lot of my family, a lot of my loved ones have been getting charged for something so petty. But I've also clicked in my head, I was like, but for someone that actually hurt a child, you want to give them 4 years. But for someone over simple drug possessions, you want to criminalize them just because they have that enhancement, just because they're a brown man and woman. So it clicked to me, and then it's like I started like everything started clicking in my head. I was like, okay. So I, you know, started coming around MILPA more because we were doing a lot of work together. I remember one of the things is like Why You Stop Me was the name of the program, where they brought a program from Long Beach to Salinas and to teach our youth how to react when you're getting pulled over. And they pulled a gun on one of the members. Was like, we're like, no, we can't have this here. You can't be pulling a gun on our youth like that. Like, what do you think their first response is gonna be if you do that? So we protested, you know, and then right outside, and we're like, no, we can't have this. Mm-hmm. We can't have this in our community. Where in 2014 we've got, you know, there was 4 Latino men shot and killed in the hands of police, and in 2013 it was someone that I knew personally, a family friend who was shot and killed by police, and then in 2014 another one. So like you can't. So that's what they decided to bring the program. You can't have this here. You can't be training our youth in their reactions. Like if you point a gun at someone, well, what do you think? That's already traumatizing our youth. So that's when I got to work a little bit more with MILPA, and that's how I got introduced to the movement work. And for me, it clicked, you know, because for so long I was saying F this, F that, you know, but I wasn't doing anything about it. Didn't really understand the root causes and the politics behind it. I just understood at a young age that I was gonna lose people either to life sentences, to prison, or death. Mm-hmm. That's the only way I've lost my people throughout my life in my childhood years, you know, and I've seen that. And I never really understood that. I did understand that it was based on my skin color because I was brown, you know, that was a sentence for you, a life sentence for you here.
Yeah, I think you started touching on it, you know, how you got involved with MILPA. So it'd be cool if you can share like how did that start? You know, once you were involved with MILPA, right? Once you were in the org, you know, what was that process for you like? You know, just yourself, your growth, and how was it, you know, stimulating your conscience, you know?
Yeah, so when I started working at MILPA, mind you, I was very, very quiet. I didn't really talk a lot, because it was just, you know, it was another two women, and it was nothing but men. And the men that I've always been around have always been in my life for so long. So being around new men was like, I don't know you guys, you know, like, I'm not gonna talk to you. And I was very, very quiet. Like it was like, for me, it was a trust issue. You know, even though I felt more weirded out being around women, I had to keep maybe not weirded out was not the right word, but, you know, I felt like trusting women was harder for me than trusting men. And, you know, so when I started working at MILPA, I was very, very quiet, very reserved. And it took me about a year for me to, like, adjust and be like, hey, this is Airam, right? This is who I am. Hi, how are you? So tell me about yourself. I'm sorry. So, you know, it took about a year, and I started doing I came in here doing an internship with Prop 47, and I came with Alexis, you know. So Alexis has always been my teammate the whole time, you know. He's still here. He does a lot of work in South County. So we were doing both, and Yo back then was like, I don't understand this. Like, Airam, do you want to do this? No, I want to do it. You do it. I was like, okay. I was like, you have your bachelor's, you do it. You know. So it, you know, and then I got introduced to Sheen Ashley and to doing Young Women's Program, and I always share this story with the youth when I'm facilitating a young Sheen Ashley. I'm like, you know, the first time I heard about Sheen Ashley, I was 14 years old. I was on informal probation. And it was forced by probation for me to go to Sheen Ashley. And I don't remember if it was someone from BHC that was facilitating this. And I walk in there and I see nothing. My mom just drops me off, right, in the north side of Salinas. Like, you have to be there. And I was thinking, like, how am I going to walk? Like, I can't walk. I mean, I could walk, but I don't want to walk. You know, this is a long walk from, like, you know, I have to take some cuts and stuff like that. So I was already, like, in my head, like, how am I going to get rid of it? How am I going to go home? I don't want to be here. I walk in there and I see nothing but young women. And I was like, so I sat down for a bit, you know, mind you, 14-year-old me, you know, straight tomboy, walking in there. And I was like, oh, quiet, I didn't know anybody there. Like, hi, how are you? I'm good. You know, just very, I was like, I'm just sit up, like, I'm not gonna be here. And I walked up, and I just walked out, and probation was like, what are you doing? I'm not gonna be here. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. And I just ended up walking away. And, you know, I got in trouble after that, because I was like, you know, I can't walk away. And I sure did. So I always share that, you know, and then I ended up being a Sheen, and now I'm a Sheen Ashley facilitator. So I always tell them, you know, give it a try, you know, give it a try. So I was able to navigate, for me, was learning a healthy youth for years, right? The last years I had left, but it was actually learning those teachings. I'm like, damn, if I really would have taken a chance on Sheen Ashley or on any cultural programming, I don't know if I would have made the same choices as I did, you know. A lot of choices I did as a youth was not because I wanted to, it was more of like a thing of survival, you know. I had to do this in order for me to survive going through this. But yeah, so when I came to MILPA, I learned a little bit more about culture, I learned more about policy, and it clicked, you know, everything did click. I was like, I'm doing this for my people, I'm doing this for my community. And throughout my work at MILPA, you know, now I facilitate women groups. I was like 24 years old facilitating women groups from ages 25 and over. And I was like, well, you're not even 25, I know, but I got this, you know. But along the way, I've had different women come in and supported me, you know, and like, hey, this is how you can navigate this, you know. So I give it a chance, you know. It took me about a year for me to adjust. And now it's having to hold space for either for families that have lost their children to police brutality, or being able to navigate different spaces, which is really heavy, but that's my community. All the shootings, police involved shootings that have happened in Salinas have been in the east side of Salinas. All brown people, you know, and I always say, like, if you're brown, and living in the east side of Salinas, those, either you're a woman or a man, however you identify yourself, you fit those categories where your life can be taken at the hands of police. And then in 2016, we lost Joel Rodas, a 16-year-old that was going through a mental health episode. In 2019, we had lost Brenda Rodriguez Mendoza, a mother that was going through postpartum depression. And just last year, we lost Gerardo Martinez, who, a young man that was, didn't really speak Spanish or English, So in the last 3 shootings that we've had, we've lost 3 youth, So that's a space where I have to come and navigate. And I have the choice of not to. But for me, it's like someone has to do it. And that's my community. If you put me to work somewhere else, it's either, I'm going to do it here because this is my home. I see the struggles of people waking up at 5, 4 o'clock in the morning, working long hours, meeting the sun, but not knowing and praying that their kid comes back home safe. That by the time they're home, their kids are there. That their kids are not incarcerated. That their kids were not a victim of police brutality. That their kids made it back home. And these people give up so much just to get paid minimum wage, just to get exploited. They do so much just to live in an overcrowded home because rent's so high. Food, like all the prices are going up, but we have a house that's a 3-bedroom home and we have 5 families living there, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's like everybody deserves their own space, The lack of programs that we have in the East Salinas. I was just in a meeting yesterday where we have so much programs, and I feel like jumping in and I'd rather ask this question directly rather than in the chat box and be like, where are these programs located? Because if you're talking about the YMCA, it's in South Salinas. If you're talking about libraries, we only have 1 library in East Salinas. If you're talking about parks, well, hey, some parks need to be fixed up in East Salinas. And so much of this budget, we're seeing fixing the roads and the sidewalks, yeah, that's good and all. But how about to those mothers that, that have to work at least 2 jobs just to provide for their family? So I come from that community, and I had to see my mom go through a lot of those struggles, and witness that, So working at MILPA, it's something that I enjoy. Oftentimes I don't see it as work. It's like I'm gonna go with my community. I'm gonna go advocate for my community because nobody advocated for me this much when I was younger. There might be a little Airam somewhere out there, that. Because even though I'm not in foster home no more, even though I'm not in juvenile hall anymore, someone else took my place, and who knows, if she will make it past 25. Who knows what this young woman has been going through or will ever go through. So nobody's going to advocate for my community as much as someone from that community. So I always tell people, you go over there and study, go get your master's, go get your PhD, but come back. Because we're seeing that trend of folks it's thanks to us that the crime rate has dropped. And it's you don't prevent crime from happening. You show up after it happens. But crime rate has dropped, and is not thanks to SPD or any, law enforcement. It's thanks to those people that have left and came back, to those teachers that are supporting their youth, for those teachers that are able to do after-school programming for free. For those people that are working in recreation centers and don't even get paid as much, for those people that are trying to bring our cultura back, and do you think some of the money comes from their own pockets? Majority of the money comes from their own pockets. So it's thanks to them that they are providing these youth services in parks, that are, working in gardens together as a community, that they have that space for youth.
Yeah, really shifting the train of thought, it just brings that to mind. It's it's the people, the people that are themselves bringing down that lateral violence, or stepping away from it, stepping, away from just being victimized themselves, right? Or also understanding too, hey, our strife and struggle, it's actually funding their kids' college tuition or their homes. They're having all this wealth at the expense of our poverty, you know. So thank you for sharing that, for sure, because I think that's something that needs to be always highlighted too, you know, that there is a lot of you know, structural racism going on, you know, the disparities, the data, all that stuff is there, you know, and that, you know, and just, I want to just ask too, is like, what have you seen, since you've been working at MILPA, right, have you seen a change, right, in your community based on like the current like level of engagement and advocacy that's going on? Because understanding that there is, due to like George Floyd, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement, all that stuff, all that national conversation that was going on, there was things popped up everywhere. So just thinking about like you doing the work that you're doing, right, and with MILPA, have you seen, like personally, have you seen some of the, I guess, some of the shift?
Yeah, so when I started working at MILPA, we've always tried to, you know, engage in budget process in the city of Salinas and the county level. And it wasn't like you mentioned after George Floyd that sparked this national movement where it was like, this is what's going on. You know, a lot of folks don't understand is like, we don't have to look everywhere else. You know, it's been happening in our community, you know, and it just gets buried like very easily. You know, and I could say that besides MILPA, there's also other organizations and other groups and other people that have shown up before the George Floyd death happened. So yeah, I can see how now it's more of like an engagement. It you know, it has sparked a national movement. But that movement would have not, here locally, would have not been as it is if it wasn't for the organizations and people that have been supporting, you know. And oftentimes I feel like MILPA is the person, like they come to us, you know. It's like, oh, that's what we've been saying the whole time, you know. But now we're seeing it more, and now there's way more support. You know, it definitely, it's sad to say that someone had to pass away in order for people to really see the institutional racism that you mentioned and really see the root causes of violence that have been perpetrated by law enforcement and, you know, this policies and racism and everything else that comes with it. Because when we look at institutions, when we really look at, you know, how institutions were formed, we have to understand these institutions were by slavery, by genocide. You know, that's their base. That's how these institutions were formed. And it was by slavery, genocide. And when I talk about genocide and slavery, I'm not just talking about killing people. It's, you know, the generational trauma that we still carry to this day when we're talking about the psychological trauma, when we're talking about rape. We're talking about moms getting their kids taken away. We're talking about kids being in boarding schools, in foster homes, in cages that we're seeing to this day. And that didn't happen years ago. It's been happening. So when we talk about institutional racism, we have to understand that it was built on that. It was built on the power of oppression towards our people. And it was just an African American people. It's also our Mexica people. It's also our tribal people. It's still all people of color that we have survived all that. And we've passed this on to generations from generation, and we've been able to properly adapt to it, and not in a healthy way, you know. So yes, working with MILPA, I have definitely seen more that I would have liked to see when I was younger, you know. Yes, so I would have loved to see that when I was younger, and now it's, a lot of people don't understand why we're doing this, but they don't understand that a majority of us have been through those systems. We have either been formerly incarcerated, system impacted by one of our loved ones, or us have been through this system. So we know that as much as we want to call it rehabilitation centers, they're not rehabilitations. At a young age, they show you how to do time. And being in juvenile hall, they show you how to do time. Being in foster care homes, they show you how easily it is for your kids to be taken away too. How easily it was for my mother to cry to them when it wasn't even her fault, the situation that we were put in. You know, she had to work, she had to provide for me, she had to put a roof over my head. But they show you how easily it is for you to be so powerless, you know? So a lot of the folks working at MILPA, we come from that background. We understand that there's nothing rehabilitating about that, regardless if you want to add a rehabilitation word and then prison. You know, it's still prison, you know, and we've seen that even, you know, we have seen kids in cages. You know, oftentimes like, oh, they see people, they treat us like animals. It's like, you know, they have animals in zoos. Just like they have people, we have our folks in prison. And what happens when you have people from like certain commissions or people that are like trying to invest more money in this private prisons, they go and they look at you. Yeah. Just like they will see any animal in the zoo. Yeah. And they will invest their money to keep you there. So we come from that. We've experienced that. And we're telling people this is not the solution. There's other solutions to incarceration. There's other solutions in a way where little Airam could have probably been incarcerated. She would have had that support at a young age that her mother was crying for, that her mother pleaded to have. You know, but it's just so easy to criminalize someone. You know, the only time they acknowledge us is when they see a number in the paper. Mm-hmm. That's the only time they acknowledge us. The only time. The number when we see it in the data.
Yeah, to secure their job.
Yeah.
You know, secure their livelihood.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I've met good probation officers that they mean well, you know, they're like, we're here to help out the youth, but they don't understand that the bigger picture of it. I've seen a lot of probation officers growing up that just quit their jobs. Their hands were tied. You know me, I like asking a lot of questions. So it's like, why did you work for probation? Because we want to be around youth, we want to help out the youth, and next thing you know, and I would tell them, how is this helping us out? You know, and I have stories about foster care too. I'm like, you're just here for the paycheck, aren't you? You're like, you're not here to help me out. But you see those people just stop working there, you know, because their hands are tied. You're working for an institution that's not meant to help. You know, I understand they want the best for the youth, but it hasn't just failed 10 people. It has failed millions and billions of kids, women, men, and our LGBTQIA community too.
Well, not only that, but I feel like sometimes you grow up with that stigma of like, oh, I want to be a police officer, I want to be like a probation officer, because they come into an elementary schools and they're like, hey, like, we're super cool, like, come, like, we'll bring you donuts, we'll do this for you, and you're just like, oh yeah, you know, they're pretty cool, not knowing that they're actually there to start putting the stigma in our heads. So, you know, and I feel like a lot of your youth have come to you like, hey, like, you know, this is what they told me, like, but what's been your experience, the man with like SROs and probation officers with your youth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have youth come to us, and I've met with moms, and like, this is true reality of SROs. They rather invest in having, and we've seen this through situations that have happened here in the past year in our communities and in different counties too, in the state of just in the state of California in general, where they're like, we see them because they're all suited up. You know, at an early age, we were taught to think that being all suited up, being all in uniform is a sign of protection. But what they don't understand is that even if they have these trainings for mental health or not a mental health specialist, you didn't go to school for a whole year, 4 years you didn't do that. Like, you're not going to put what it's 2 years for you, or 2 to 4 years, or even longer to become a mental health specialist in a 1 week training. Yeah. You know, they're like, oh, well, we got training this, we got training that. I was like, well, this is where all taxpaying money is going to? Like, okay. But we've seen that, you know, and people are like, we need SROs because they could have prevented crime from happening. When it's like, they don't read minds. They don't show up after it happens. You know, a lot of our kids are already coming home. They're already coming with their own traumas, not knowing their parents are going to come back home due to, you know, immigration. They don't know if, you know, something might happen to their parents and they're going to take care of the siblings. So they're already feeling all this pressure, and going to school and seeing a law, like if law enforcement there or seeing probation there. You're coming from a community where your neighbor just got killed by SPD. You're coming from a community where your loved one just got taken away for having a simple drug possession, but someone else gave you a life sentence. Mm-hmm. Our kids are coming with those life sentences already to our schools, and the only thing, you know, personally, I remember, you know, when I was entering my freshman year, my mom advocated, it's like, is there any other services for my daughter? You know, I was a troublemaker. The way I responded to my traumas was through violence, you know. And my mom asked, like, is there any, you know, therapist, anything that my daughter can see, any after school program she has to engage with? They're like, no. She's going to get kicked off to the opportunity school, which is only 3 hours a day, to the portables, excluded from school. That's all we have for her. So like I heard moms going to their family members asking for this support, and all they can do is invest in probation and law enforcement to be in our schools. You could call it a school resource officer all you want. And I heard one of the members from somewhere, I think in Santa Cruz County, said, "Oh, but they're resource officers. They have the word resource." You know who I'm talking about. I was like, there's no such thing. Like, once again, we go back to point A, where we have rehabilitation and then prison over here, all in the name of it. Just like we have resource, and then we have police.
Yeah, it's, like the whole, those components of the school to prison pipeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get less time in school, which makes no sense, it makes no sense. Oh, we're gonna try to help you out by taking you away from as many hours you should be in school, we're gonna give you less time of education, more time to be at home where, we might be at home alone, because our parents are working 2-3 jobs,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So, that just, it really brought like so many similarities, right, and parallels that are us, as folks that are brown, have been through the system, our stories are similar, in different parts of California, different parts of the Central Coast, it's like, so I just wanted to say that because I was feeling it,
Now, but with that, like, you've navigated the space of being able to bring people together at the same time, but you are a full-time student and you work full-time and you're a mother, and that's like a 24/7, job. So like, how do you navigate that, and how do you bring in your own kid to be able to show them like what you've been doing for the past years?
Yeah, so my little one, when I had him, he was a MILPA baby. I would bring him to work. I didn't have childcare. I couldn't afford it. To this day, childcare is super expensive, so I would bring him, and everybody, he'll go with me to meet with our assembly member. He'll go with me to the círculos. There's pictures of him sitting on in little círculos, and with his own little chair, I will take him to any event that I would be part of. I think as a mother, it's good to introduce your kids to this type of work. Like you mentioned, I'm a student, I'm a mom, I'm a brown woman, I work full time too. And I guess when you find something that you enjoy doing, you have your heart there. Your heart's there, your good intentions is there. So don't get me wrong, some days I go home and I'm just like super drained, but I have to remember that I'm not just doing this for my community. I'm not just doing this for the little Airams out there, I'm doing this for my son. And it's a sad reality where I have to think about like, my son can be one day a victim of police brutality. My son can be someone that can be taken away from me due to incarceration because he's brown. Something that I constantly have to think about. And I've always said, like, we don't have to wait for our kids to be taken away from us for us to do something about it, and for me, being a mom is also advocating for my little one and showing him like, hey, this is what your mommy does. Maybe one day, he doesn't want to be in the movement. How about if he wants to be a doctor, or he wants to be in the Super Bowl? I don't know. How about one day he wants to be a mechanic, or whatever he decides to do, I'm his mom and I'm gonna have to support him, and I've seen that with my mom. I see my mom working full time and then still coming home and still showing her type of affection to me, even if it was just 1 hour a week or she was just tired, I see my mom do that. So a lot of, we don't have that privilege to have her to live in a $1 billion house, or like in a house where you get to be a housewife. No, we don't have that. And even if I wouldn't see myself doing that, Now that there's something that made me want to erase that part. But yeah, for my little one, I see my mom do that, and as a brown woman, as a formerly incarcerated brown woman, for me, going to school is something that I have to have. We live in this capitalist society where I have to show that, yes, I navigated that, but I also have this to back me up, I don't have that privilege of, of just showing up spaces and just getting a job like that, and I also showing my little one, like, hey, your mom did this, your mom was a single mother, she had to navigate all this stuff, and my kid's just a loving kid, let me tell you. And if I didn't have him, I don't think I would have so much structure in my life. Where, when he was born, I was dealing with a lot. I was dealing with homelessness, and usually I would deal with it myself. But this time I had a little one with me. I had my little cranny with me, I had my little one just like, and I'll just have a long day, and he was just like, he was such a happy baby. Like, to this day, he's a very loving kid. He can hike for miles. He's just a brave little kid, You can tell he's my kid. So I have to, I go home and seeing him, it just makes my day, and I have to remember, like, I'm doing this not just for my community, but I'm doing this for him. I might not see a difference in my lifetime as much as I would love to see in an ideal world, but I'm planting those steps, and I'm doing it with them, and I have to, I have to do something. I have to go to school. I have to. For me, it's like if I give myself an option, I was like, oh, maybe. It's like, I'm going to choose that other option. But when you don't give yourself no option, then you don't have an option. You just got to do it, So for me, that's the structure that I don't give myself an option. I just do it. So yeah, that's how I navigate it. You see a little Aslan here and there, and I can see that out of his 3 years of life, he's been in spaces and, I believe 2 different protests about people that have been taken from us. He goes with me. He's safe. I wouldn't take him anywhere where he's not safe. I wouldn't put myself in a position where it's not safe. But he goes with me. You'll find pictures of him. He's a car person. He loves trucks. You can see him trying to do a little mechanic. So just seeing him. Also, like, a reflection of, like, man, there's other kids that are away from their parents. And I have you. So for me, it was life-changing once I had him. It's like, I didn't want my kid to be in foster homes because I know how I felt going to the park and seeing kids with their parents. I didn't want that for him. So I'm doing this for him. And hopefully one day he'll understand, he might have questions in the future, and I'm open to having them with him. But yeah, I'm a mom, and I think that's one of the biggest blessings. He's one of my biggest blessings.
Yeah, not only that, but I feel like in the Mother's Day episode, you did mention how, you trick us with, like, do you want to go to the park, or, like, do you want to do this? So how has he brought the youthfulness out of you as well?
That's funny. I usually blame it on him. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Asan, do you want to do this? And he goes with me everywhere I go. So part of me is like, oh, Asan wants to do this. I went over here because, Asan wanted to go here. But in reality, it's like, I wanted to go there. Or sometimes when I'm in the toy aisle, and I see, like, a lot of arts and crafts, I'm not gonna lie, he's not gonna do that. He was like, you want this, huh? I know you do. I'm just gonna get it for you. Let's just get this try. So he's brought the youth in me, like, having to reconnect with something that was forcefully taken away from me. That connection with your loved one. I can say that with my mom, it was that connection between us was forcibly taken away by the systems. So I remember when he was a baby, I was just like, I love you. Like, I just can't find that connection with you yet. So with him, I learned how to find that reconnection with him, of damn, I'm your mom, dude. Like, I call him, hey, bro. Hey, bro. You want to go do this? Do you want to go eat ice cream? I try to not give him as much ice cream because he's full of himself. Like, and what I mean by that in the best possible way, like, he's full of curiosity. He's full of his own little personality, of his own little bravery, and everything that he brings is just like, dang, you're so full of energy. Like, how are you gonna hike 4 miles and not take a nap? I'm over here trying to take a nap with you. So I can see that it a lot of stuff that I couldn't have as a kid. Not that I'm trying to spoil my child, because it's like, let's go out somewhere, let's go for a walk, We still have Disneyland, because I know he wants to go to Disneyland, I know he wants to go to Universal Studios, I know he wants to go to Gilbert Gardens.
I know he wants to do all
that. Bro, you don't know what Disneyland is.
Yes, he does. No, I know he wants to go places, and we're gonna go those places. So I get to relive that, in a healthy way, and explore that with him. So I'm not going alone. I have someone that's coming with me. Better yet, he's not going alone. He has someone that's going with him. So,
That's what breaking the cycle looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and yeah, we see, I see like what we're trying to build here is, that community, right? A safe space and safe community for our young ones, for our kids to be raised with a bunch of tios and tias, and that's cool. It's like,
Yeah.
I see that when I get the chance to be around them, right? Just kind of trip out as a little kid, it's like, makes me think of, my daughters too at the time, and it's like, that's really important. It's like, man, where was that connection at when that first happened, it's like, and being able to find it, through, from the corazón a corazón, it's like, so that right there is like really humbling, and like really respect, like I respect that, that right there, observing and acknowledging that, it's and that's part of our healing.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of that work that we do, not just for MILPA, but for ourselves, and essentially that's what it is. So thank you for sharing that. I think that component right there is, for me, is very important to hear. And you've mentioned, like you brought it, Aslan with you to, some of these protests, and some of these things, some of these things that you actually led, right, organized, to support, and I guess the truth is, it's like it's been because of life has been taken,
Mm-hmm.
and so maybe try to explain to us, like how were you able to navigate that, because it's tough, what I'm saying, like that's one of the things like we really holding high esteem for holding it down like that. Not anybody can hold it like that, and be there and present for the familia with all these components and factors coming in, and ahí estás tú, boom, with little Aslan también, like, what's up, just, but maybe, kind of.
Yeah, so and I think that goes back to me being young, having to see moms lose their children, having to see how our mom would support their friends when their kids were taken away or killed, or going through these systems. And then having to see my friends' moms go through this, me having to witness things like that happen in front of me. And that goes back to like, man, I'm a mom, and I think that's one of her worst fears is losing her child. Losing a child to someone that's supposed to quote unquote protect and serve. And there's no justice to that. So, and it comes to, and I want to, highlight Debbie Aguilar. She passed away, I believe last year, and she will do this work. She will be the first person that will show up knocking at your door. And there will be nobody else to replace her. I remember I met her like that. She showed up in my door when I lost a loved one too, and she was like, she just hugged me, and she had the warm hug of just like, man, I just poured in this stranger's arms, and she's like, Mija, it's okay. She had also lost her son to community violence, and she made sure that she was over there supporting families, and there will be nobody else taking her place because that's Debbie Aguilar, that's Debbie Aguilar. And for me, I always looked up to her, the way that she was strong, resilient mom, and sadly she passed away about a year ago. So for my community, it's a place where I come from. Man, like, who's gonna hold you like that? As much as I want to hug them and help them heal, like, I don't have that superpower. I have to come and just, how can I help you? And it's just a stranger knocking at, so there's different ways I navigate because every mom is different. Every pain is different. We might like, oh, they lost a kid. They might be feeling similar. No, like, two people might have the similar story, might have the life sentence, and I say life sentence along trauma that you're gonna hold for the rest of your life, you know. And they might go through the same thing, but they're gonna feel different. You know, everybody's different. Everybody's unique in their own way. So when I come into this space, I don't know how I navigate it. It's just a place where I have to be quiet because I have never been through that. But in a way of like, I'm present and I'm gonna keep showing up, and you tell me how I can help you, instead of me going over there like, this is what you need. Mm-hmm. You know, like that's the way the system works, and that's not the system. You know, and I think that's one of my worst fears is having to go through that, you know. And I always envision like, man, if that was my friend's mom, or the way I've seen my mom navigate those spaces, it's, you know, the way I see my grandma navigate those spaces too, is something that I just have to do it, you know. It's not something that I get paid for. You know, I sometimes have to show up after hours, you know, and that's fine. Like, this is not a 9-to-5 job. It's very hard for me to explain the way I navigate those spaces, because in my head I have like this idea of how to navigate it, but once I walk into that house, it's completely different, you know. And, you know, some parents show grief, some parents show grief in a different way. So I walk in there with, tell me how I can be useful for you.
So maybe a better question, mm-hmm. right, for me to ask you, I think, just listening to that, is, what do you do to take care of yourself? Because it's like, that is a lot. Mm-hmm. It's taking in a lot. There's revisiting trauma, mm-hmm. revisiting lived experience, right? And sometimes feeling helpless, you know, too. It's like, damn, this is still going on. The work that we're doing. Yeah. You know, so like, how do you deal with that too? You know.
And I guess part of it that works is the work, right? And I feel, regardless of what we do, we're never going to serve any type of justice to the family who just lost a loved one. And I mean that we hear the word justice and we think about holding someone accountable based on their actions, right? But that goes back to this institutional racism, and that goes back on the way we criminalize a brown person at a higher rate than we criminalize a white person. So the way, and I say that because we use the word justice a lot, you know. So we have to really consider, like, have we ever seen justice in our lives? Have I ever seen justice in my life? No. If I would tell you the way that I would like to see justice is investment into our communities to prevent, you know, all this, what we consider crime happening. We have 2 prisons right outside Salinas within less than 15-mile radius. We have a new juvenile hall. We have a new county jail, and we have a new police station. But what's going actually to our communities was actually going to the east side of Salinas, where it reports the highest tax revenue out of the whole Salinas, sales tax revenue mm-hmm. out of all Salinas. And it's the least part of Salinas, which is one of the also district that gets reinvested on. So me being able to go up there and just give public comment, even though they might not understand what's going on and where I'm coming from, because they don't understand what it is seeing a mother cry. They don't understand how I get to go home, and something that I choose to do is by choice, something that because I know it's gonna happen again, you know. And it's sad to say that I'm waiting for another phone call for me to meet these parents that just lost their loved one. And I could say that I'm waiting for that to happen because it's gonna happen again. You know, and I know that I go home feeling my heart really heavy, feeling helpless, not knowing how I can even support this family that's in grief. You know, and I know I have my little one, you know, that he's a very smart little boy, and he knows for some reason he just comes and you've seen him, you know, like he comes to me, just like hugs me, like he knows what's going on. And the way I take care of myself is, you know, I meet with my elders. I'm like, this is what's going on, mm-hmm. and I need help. You know, I might need less help than the family that's going through it, but I need help, you know, and knowing when to ask for help. I know I have a good support system and I'm the type of person I would say that's like, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay. You know, like, and I say that I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Like, even when I'm not fine, I'm okay, you know? and I know you all have seen that when I come. I'm like, are you okay? Do you want to talk? No, I'm fine. Like, cool. You know, the way I decompress is different. You know, I end up going back to ceremony. You know, that, and so far that's the only thing that has helped me dealt with you know, having to hold spaces for parents like that, or having to hold space for loved ones. I don't know how Debbie did it, you know, but that's the way I decompress. It's because I've life has hit me in different places where it's like it shows up in your health, you know. You start it starts internalizing in you, and it turns into your health. It starts showing up in your health. So I go back to ceremony. You know, I go back to like, hey, I need a few days, you know, to figure things out. And being able to come back the next day and facilitate a youth group, you know, or being able to come back when I go home and be a mother, or be a student, or be a woman, you know, just in general, just, you know, and I feel like when I'm working with the youth, when that happens, they feel it too, you know. So I have to make sure I take care of myself and making sure that I don't pass those baggages on to them, because they're already scared. They're already coming from like, man, I don't even want an SRO in our campus, because who knows who they're gonna get, you know, who we're gonna lose because of our skin color, and their history that they have with our community. So for me, it's always going back to my elders, going back to the mujeres, you know, that have supported me, and going back to my little one, my baby boy, you know, going back to him, going back to ceremony. You know, that's the only thing that has helped me out so far, and it's continued to help me out.
Yeah, and I feel like it's important for you to take care of yourself, because I know nonetheless, like if something happened or when something has happened in like back in the Central Valley, whenever a brown woman shows up, you can feel that love, and you can feel how they can feel that compassion, but how they've been hurt too. Because whenever another person from a different community, that they're affluent, you know, coming in with all these services, trying to provide for us, it's just kind of like, it feels kind of fake, you know? It doesn't feel genuine, and it just feels like, hey, here's a bunch of pamphlets, pick your option, you know? So I feel like all of these moms and all these families, like, they can feel that warmth from you. And so, you know, we're grateful for you, like, taking time to take care of yourself. Because, you know, we need more people like you, but we need Airam, like, in the movement. And so, yeah, you know, just appreciate you.
You know, just gracias, you know, for sharing that, you know, for sharing all that stuff, you know. I think it's important for folks to hear those stories from us, you know, because usually, you know, it's like, historically, we're not the ones that tell the people who we are, you know. Right. You know, it's told for us, like who we are, how we act, you know, all that stuff. So, you know, listening to your story and the stories of the other folks here at MILPA también, are, you know, in the community también, you know, that like, hey, this is what I've been through, and this is how I'm handling it. But I'm involved, you know, like, what are you doing, you know, type of thing, you know. So, and I guess just as it's always customary for us to, you know, here in the show, you know, to, you know, kind of close it off with the message, you know, kind of call to action. So, you know, what would your message be to the East Salinas, to the youth out there, to the families, you know?
I always like to say that I was a kid from East Salinas, you know, and when they tell me, where are you, I'm always proud to say I'm from East Salinas. I'm not just from Salinas, I'm from East Salinas, you know. I always say that because I love that we have in our community. I could say that the times that I've supported families, I see the whole community there. You know, people showing up. It's just not one person by itself, it's a whole community. And I could also say that it's not only being me, like it's also people that I've worked with, that helped organize, you know, Dia de los Muertos, the budget season, and right now we are in budget season. So, you know, I want to, you know, if I would give out, so to say something as an advice, is that, you know, in life, no one's gonna advocate for you as much as you're gonna advocate for yourself. You know, you can scream all you want, but if you don't advocate for yourself, it's, you know, I could advocate for someone else, but it's not going to be the same for people that have those stories. You know, for them to be able to write their stories, for them to be proud of where they're from, and never forget, if you go out there, never forget where you come from and where your people come from. Because the day you forget that is the day that you erase everything that your people have ever been through, that ever went through. And we have strong lineage. We have come from people that have survived genocide, that have survived slavery, that have survived so much for us to forget. We can't do that. And it is budget season. So call to action, if anybody from Salinas would like to get involved in the budget season, regardless of your age, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your skin color, please let us know. We have some cool workshops going on. We need as much support as possible, because even though we oftentimes see the same issues in other communities, we have elected officials that are there to represent us. That's their job. SPD right now is getting 43% of our budget, and Parks and Recs is not even getting 0.5% of that. We know that there's a lot of need in our community, and we need people to come support and hold these elected officials accountable, because some of them weren't raised in East Salinas. Some of them are privileged folks that are representing a community that majority are people of color. So this is a call for action for everybody that would like to get involved and meet our great partners and other groups and organizations that have been doing amazing work in their communities as well. So yeah, that's a call to action for anybody that would like to get involved, anybody that would like to know a little bit more about cultura and have those healthy conversations. We don't judge at all. So yeah, that's my call to action.
Yeah, muchas gracias, Airam. And with that, Bernie, do you have anything else that you would like to share with Airam?
I think just keep doing what you're doing, right? We've seen the growth, we built our relationship, our bond, and that's something that I hold dear and esteem a lot, And it's interesting because even though we do some work in separate parts of the county or the region, it's always good. We always come back, and it feels like home, it feels like normal, It's like, hey, ¿qué onda? We check in and stuff. So I just appreciate everything that you're doing, the work that you're putting in, that effort, right? And always being present as a pillar of support for people, as a leader, And I think that's what MILPA allows us to cultivate for ourselves, to put ourselves in those positions where, like, you know what, if you're gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, So, just good things for you,
Now, muchas gracias for coming on, Airam. And with that, remember to share this with all the folks. Like, subscribe, drop a comment. Tell us what you liked about Airam's outfit. Something simple.
Say no judgment.
But thank you so much. You can be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at MILPA Collective. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Culture, consciousness, and movement building MILPA. Cultivated change makers, yeah, we're that squad. Here we go.